Hi there, my name is Ava Decatur, and this is my senior capstone project. Alright, so I chose to do a 2D portfolio, and that includes like collage, painting, drawing, anything that's two-dimensional. And so I chose to study the visual representation of different Bible verses and how they have connected/impacted my life. Okay, so more kind of about that idea. When I first went into this project, I actually was doing things, places, people, just different things that have impacted who I am and who I've become. And I did that for most of the year or first semester. And then I decided it was too broad of an idea. And so I kind of narrowed it down just to different verses and how connecting them in a personal piece to how they've connected my life. And I think that the narrow idea was a lot better for me just because it was hard to come up with pieces at the beginning that I was able to do. And so, and a lot of these things connect back to Jesus and my religion, which is why these pieces worked out so well. And I could come up with so many. So, the biggest/most important thing in my life has always been Jesus. So, I examined different ways I could express this importance. I think it was really neat to be able to choose different Bible verses and just represent them in a more visual way. So I investigated how to connect these verses to my own life and be able to make a personal representation of each of the verses and how they've connected me to the Bible and how they've impacted my life and just different situations about that. So I decided to add different pictures and images from my own experience in ways that I can relate and connect to each of the verses I chose. So, from using experiences, people, places, things, and beliefs throughout my life to best interpret these verses into paintings and collages is mostly what I've done with these. Okay. So, these are my 4 projects. I'm working on a 5th one right now, and I'm not quite finished with the 4th. But these are my main projects that I'm doing. And each one of these projects, I actually based it on one specific verse in the Bible, and then I kind of worked off that verse to give an important meaning behind it and represent that verse in a way. And so all the verses I've chose have actually had a really big impact on my life or have been seen in my life in some way. Okay, so the first one, I'll just give a quick overview. The first one was Matthew 28:19, and I did that one on collage of the world, connecting back to mission work. Second one I did was Psalms 1:3. It's over trees and roots growing deep, which I'll get more into. The next one I did was Matthew 16:24, denying yourself through worship. And then I did Acts 13, showing the contrast of what man sees and what God sees. Okay, so for my first one, I did Matthew 16:24, and that verse is, Then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take their cross, and follow me. So this piece is based on that verse. And so how that connects back to me is actually I went to so many different churches just because my family moved around a ton, and each one of them had different qualities of leading, planning, events, people, all that kind of thing. And so one thing that always remained the same was the worship, and it was just a time of prayer, connection with you and God, laying everything down in order to grow you in your faith and allow Him to take control of your life. I feel like that's a big part of Christianity, and it just connects you to other people. So I feel like it was always something that brought people together was worship, and so I wanted to connect that in a way. Okay, so I haven't actually painted or drawn hands before. So I looked up tutorials on YouTube, just kind of the first ones that came up, and I experimented with them, watched them, looked up different positions of hands just because you can do a lot with hands. And so it was neat to see what all I could do with it. So the video one is actually to the left. That one is based on the video and just different things they taught me. And to the right is the one that I experimented with and kind of tested out different things I could do with it to give it kind of an open hand. And that's what I wanted to portray as an open hand, just because worship is a surrender. Like you're alone with God, like you're laying everything down. And I feel like that's an open hand represents an open heart. And so I wanted to kind of do that. And I think the video was super helpful. So definitely recommend watching videos before you dive right into it. So I'm skipping right to my final piece. And I did obviously that hand. I used oil paint for this one. I don't quite think this one's done just because as you can see, it is a hand, but you can't really tell that it's my hand. And the people below, if you can tell those are people, it's really abstract. But the people below worshiping, you just can't, just has a disconnection in the piece. And so I think I definitely want to finish that. But I really liked how the hand turned out. I think it's really accurate. So I'm really happy with how the hand turned out. I just think it needs maybe a more personal connection to it. And I want to do something with it to add before I turn it in. Okay. The next verse I chose was Matthew 28:19, and that verse says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, of the Son, and the Holy Spirit." So this verse is spoken probably one of the most times at the church just because it's a mission statement for all Christians. Go and make disciples. It's something we live by as Christians after you are saved. And so make disciples, if you didn't know, is referring to going to tell people about the story of Jesus and the sacrifice he made for us on the cross. And so Christians are always looking for more people to share the good news with. It can be done through missions, which is neat to see through here, but just because nearly half the world hasn't heard of the name Jesus, so it's important for people to go out to all the world and tell them about how their life has been changed. And it's just neat to see because I think we have a very narrow view of the world, and it's neat to see it from a broad aspect and seeing how people haven't even heard of Christianity or different religions. So I just wanted to connect that to this piece. And so those are a couple of my sketches of ideas that I wanted to do. And you'll see this will relate back to a conference that I went on. So down below, the Progress of the Gospel by People Group, that's a conference that I went to called Passion, and they showed that actually. It really inspired me to do this piece just because I thought that was so neat and definitely something I want to do. I'm definitely really interested in missions, and it just connects that verse so well. So it just really worked out for this piece. And so I then color coded the different countries on places that have heard the gospel later on in this work. And so first I just looked up a quick sketch of the world, kind of drew that, painted an acrylic over it, really simple. The acrylic I actually ended up scrapping just because it looks very bland, the blue and the white, so I actually went over it in oil paint. So next is the experimentation with Mod Podge and Bible pages, because I wanted to give this more variety and a better look to it just because it needed an extra layer. And so I think the Bible pages worked really well. I experimented with magazines and different books, but I think the Bible was perfect for it, had a really good connection to my piece. And Mod Podge worked perfect because I'm able to draw over it, which is super nice. Okay, so this is now my final image. I'm really sorry it's blurry. I need to take a better picture of it later on. But as you can see, I wrote over it in the Sharpie according to the image I showed earlier. And I wrote the verse on top of that, just a small part of that verse, according to those places. And then you can see the blue looks so much different, looks a lot better, more like water, just because I went over it in oil. And then I used the black Sharpie in this more personal connection to the piece, and I drew a plane in Kansas. And then to show all the places that I hope to go one day through missions, through the dotted lines and the little stars. So yeah, that's my second piece. My third one is based on Psalms 1:3, which you could see in the image to your right. It says, like a tree planted by streams of water. That's the main part of the verse. And this is probably one of my favorite passages in the Bible, just because it's a constant reminder throughout all the seasons of my life, just that we're constantly growing in our faith and all that stuff. So this first talks about figurative tree being planted by streams of water so it's able to grow. Now this verse portrays Christian living and how we need to plant ourselves in an area that we can grow and simply being careful about what we're choosing to do with our time and who we're going to spend it with. However, for this painting, I actually decided to go the more literal route and do a tree planted by streams of water literally, just because I think it is a really great representation of just how you're constantly growing in your faith, and streams of water representing just good influences in your life. Okay, so this is the experimentation with my piece. I actually used 12 by 18 canvas, so it's a lot bigger than the image above. But I used a palette knife and oil paint to create this piece. And I experimented with warm and cool colors just because it gives the piece a nice flow and just looks better on the eye to it. So the trees are all in cool colors, and then the leaves and kind of bushes are in warm colors, which I think really brought it together. And I liked the contrast of the roots growing deeper, kind of in a 2D look, and then compared to the background, it's a more 3D look. And I really liked how this piece turned out, and it was really fun to use palette knives. So this is my final product, and really sorry it's blurry. But as you can see, the roots below kind of connect with the tree, and then I put a blue line at the bottom just to kind of show the stream of water and how it incorporates into the roots and everything. But I really like how this one turned out. I swear it looks better in person. It's just super blurry on here for some reason. But yeah, that's that piece. Okay, and then the last one, it's 1 Samuel 16:7. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look on his appearance or on the height of his statue, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. So this verse connects back to me because I'm a big overthinker. I just always has been. And it's easy to get caught up on what you think you deserve, what you want to happen. It's all about you kind of thing. As humans, we obviously don't know everything. We constantly lack understanding, and we don't have the full picture of our lives or what's going on with other people's lives. And as a Christian, obviously, I believe that God has complete control over what happened in my life. I believe he knows all and sees all. So I kind of wanted to use this piece to portray how others view me compared to how God sees me, and how he's all-knowing, omniscient, and that sort of thing. So I'm going to experiment with Photoshop and collage to create this piece and show different values in proportion of the human body. Okay, so this is my process and experimentation. This was my inspo for the piece. I found it on the web and I really loved it and thought it was a great connection to my piece. So this is my image before. That's actually me in an elevator. And I used this piece just because I thought it was a good picture and showed where I could put the image. And so this is my drawing piece that it's pretty big, but it's a heart, obviously. And I'm going to add it onto the Lightroom photo that I have below. I took the image before and I edited it into Lightroom. And I'm going to kind of collage on top, similar to my inspo piece. But I'm excited to do this. I just need to do the Photoshop and see how it turns out, but I haven't done that quite yet. So finally, just some challenges and observations that I had. First challenge was finding a sustained investigation and sticking with it. So I went way too broad in the beginning, which caused me to have difficulty with sticking with things, and I just should have picked a more narrow idea. Second thing that was hard was creating a personal touch with my pieces. I can get really disconnected with my pieces, and then I would have to go back and add something. And it's just hard for me because I just paint kind of what I want, and I'm lacking a personal piece to that. And then taking process images, because it's going to be hard to fit 15 in the end, but yeah. Okay, so then being able to create a three-dimensional look with my paintings was kind of hard, and most of my pieces would come off 2D or lacking a sense of background. So perspective was definitely a challenge here. So things I learned are like highlights. I found an idea I really loved at the end and helped me finish up my pieces really quickly just because it's so many ideas at once when I narrowed down my sustained investigation. I got better at using palette knife and mixing colors. I love using palette knife and mixing colors just with studying colors and kind of knowing where to put them. And I think I got a lot better at that. And then I also learned how to draw hands and shading them in different directions as I did in my second piece. So those are just some things that I observed throughout this whole thing that I think went well, a lot went well, and a lot just could have been changed a little bit. Um, but yeah, thank you all for listening.